So in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create this kind of stretch and snap style text animation, where if I just play this slowly, where each letter stretches up to the top, the bottom then snaps back into place and it reverses back down to the bottom. Your first instinct when creating an animation like this would probably be to use the scale. If I just show you here, if I scale this up to the top, straight away you will notice that it deforms the text and affects all the rounded edges, whereas we're looking to keep our text proportioned at the top and bottom and only elongate in the middle. So if you keep an eye on this O here, you'll see that it's completely stretched all the way from the middle to the top. If we go back to our example, you'll see that it's only the middle that's stretched and the top and bottom don't change throughout the stretch. They are as they are from the start, and it is only the middle bit that is stretched out. So keep this in mind when picking a font. I'm just going to bring our scale back down to 100. Just pop that back in the middle. So it's always good to keep this in mind when choosing a font, and you want to select a font that has nice vertical lines, nice and straight with little curvature. This font is called Obviously, which can be downloaded from Adobe Fonts if you wanted to use the same one we have here. So let's jump in, and the very first thing I'm going to do is click this button here and turn on our title and action safe. Then I'm going to hold Command and press R to bring our rulers in. And I'm just going to click and drag a ruler to the edge of our text safe lines here. And then we want to go to View and make sure we have Snap to Guides selected. I'll explain the reason for this in a second, but make sure that's done. And with our text written, we're going to right click, go down to Create Shapes from Text. Click this, and we can delete our original text, or you can keep it there just for reference, but I'm just going to delete ours. And you'll see now that if we drop this down, we have a path for every single letter. And what we're going to do is, just with one of these selected, we're going to click on one of the points, then highlight all the points, and with our time indicator at the very start, we're just going to click and hold on one of the bottom points, click and hold and drag it to the bottom, holding Shift to make sure it doesn't move side to side and it can only move directly up and down. And because we have one of the bottom points selected, it should now snap onto our guides we selected earlier. It should just snap into place. Just like that. If I just bring this back into the middle and click on one of the other points, you will see that it does not snap onto that guide. Only the one we have clicked and selected will snap. So make sure you click and drag from that bottom point, and it should snap into position. And that is going to be our starting point for our animation. Just going to drag this up slightly so we can see our letters more. And now we're going to go through every single path, starting with our M, and create a keyframe. Collapse that back, and then to the O, keyframe. Any letter that has an inside path, you will need to make sure that you create a keyframe for both. So our O has 2, down to our T, keyframe. I'm just going to do these very quickly now. And now if we just click on our layer and press U on the keyboard, all of our keyframes will appear. So these are our keyframes. And now, starting with our M, if I just select this keyframe, we can turn off our title safe now. I'm just going to zoom in. And I'm just going to move forward in my timeline to maybe a second or so. I'm going to click and drag to select all these top points here. If you miss any out, you can hold Shift and click on an individual point. Again, if you want to deselect a point, you can hold Shift and click on that point. Now I should be able to click and drag these top points. So if I zoom back out, now I can click and drag these top points. Again, we can hold Shift just so it doesn't move left or right, it just goes directly upwards. And it should snap onto that guide. There we go. If we click off, so now we can drag between, and you'll see that that first bit of motion is complete. If I zoom back in and look at the O. The O is a bit trickier from what I remember because there's only 2 points in the middle, whereas we don't want to just move that top one, and we can't highlight these ones as well because it will elongate that bottom. So what we need to do is just create 2 more points on the edge. So we'll go up to our pen tool, which is here, click and hold, and select the Add Vertex tool. Let's just zoom in as far as we can and just add a point as close to the existing points as we can. One there and one there. And then while we're zoomed in, I'm just going to select both, holding Shift, zoom back out, select that top one, and then I can click and drag these points up to the top again so it snaps up against our guide. And if we just quickly turn back on our title safe, I am going to add one more guide right in the middle, and that is because I just want to double click on this path here. If I just press enter just so we can see the points, click on that middle one, hold Shift, just so we know it snaps onto that guide. There. Zoom back out. And there we go, that's the first 2 letters done. So now we just need to do this for all the other letters. So next is the T, which is a nice easy one. I'm just going to select all these top points. There we go. Same with the I. We could even duplicate our first O, but I'm just going to do the same again quickly. So I'm going to make sure it is selected. Where is it? There it is there. Go up to our Add Vertex tool. I'm just going to add 2 points right close to our existing points. Make sure both are selected, zoom back out, select the top one. There we go, that's the last one now. And there we go, that's that first move done. Oh, I did miss that middle O. Let's just do that one quickly. Okay, and that's that first move done. So what I did do in the example is on some of the tops and bottoms, I did select these points here. If you just click and drag over the points you want and then double click, it does allow you to just stretch these out slightly, just add a bit of extra stretch. Let's go and do the same on this one. Doesn't have to be perfect or exact. About there, and then again on the T. And the same on the bottom. And then I'm just going to also stretch out our 2 O's. You can select 2 masks at once, so if you click and drag over all of them points, hold Shift, and then click and drag over the points of another path, we can double click and do both at once. If you hold Command on a Mac and I think it's Control on a PC, then it will scale from both sides, not just one. And that's about fine there. Let's zoom out. Yeah, that's looking good to me. Okay, so the next stage is to have the complete letter at the top. And to do that, we can just move along further in the timeline. Let's just copy and paste our keyframes to the end. It will jump to the bottom, but we can move that in a second. So literally click on every keyframe, copy and paste. And then if we select every point on all the paths, click on one of the top points and drag it to the top, again holding Shift so it snaps onto that guide. And this is the reason we are snapping to the guide, just to make sure it is in the exact same place that that middle keyframe goes to. so there's no movement. We could easily accidentally have it a few pixels higher or lower, and there will be that bit of movement. And what I do think adds a nice bit of extra movement is a slight bounce. So I'm just going to go a couple of keyframes towards the middle. I'm just going to, with all these final keyframes selected, I'm going to copy and paste them. So now we have two identical keyframes. But on these first ones, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to select some points, these ones here on the bottom of the M. I'm just going to move them up slightly. There I held Shift and I pressed up on the keyboard twice, which jumps 10 pixels each time when you hold Shift. So 10 pixels, 10 pixels. And that is just so I know to do the same on the next one. Then on the O, I'm just going to select the bottom and then two of our points here. Hold Shift, up, up. Knowing full well that just doing that twice makes the bottom line up. Now they are all slightly squashed, so they will sort of go past where they need to be and then bounce back into place. We can play back these keyframes in a second, but let's just get all the keyframes in place for now. So we have our starting position, up, snaps in, bounces back into position. Then we want it to hold there for just a few frames. So again, I'm going to select all our keyframes, copy and paste. And then I'm going to go forwards again about roughly a second, and I'm going to grab these middle keyframes, copy, paste. And then I'm going to go again forwards about another second, try and keep these spaced evenly. They look a bit off at the moment, but we can move those about. And then we're just going to copy and paste those very front keyframes, the very first keyframes. And then let's move back again a couple of frames and paste those same keyframes. And this is so we can add that bit of bounce back on the bottom as well. So make sure you're on the keyframes just before the end on the two duplicates. And let's do the same as we did at the top. Okay, and there we go. So I'm just going to zoom back out. Let's turn off our title safe and our guides. Let's just see how this looks as it is without any easing. There we go, that's our basic shape. So now what we need to do is add some easing. So I'm just going to highlight all our keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, and let's just do an easy ease on all the keyframes. And we just need to work out what we want to happen. We want this first bit to go quite slow. It's the same with the down, so we can highlight all these first keyframes and then the first keyframes at the top. So both times when it's initially stretching out from its finished position. And then click here on the graph editor. Make sure we have Edit Speed Graph selected. We can click here and we can drag this out just so it starts nice and slow. Let's just preview this. Okay, but what we want to happen at this middle section, let's select these middle sets of keyframes, go back to our graph editor, and we want these to be quite slow as well, slow on the out, but then quite quick when it gets to here. So in a second we'll highlight those keyframes, but for now let's just see how this is looking. It's always good to just preview as you're going just to see what you're doing and how it's affecting how it looks and where to adjust. So I think that the third sets of keyframes, which is these ones, which is the ones where it's just landed, that needs to arrive there quite quickly. So I'm just going to drag this right in so it's very steep right at the end. See how that looks? Not too bad. I feel like there's a lot of space between these keyframes, so I'm just going to tighten these all up. So I'm going to bring those to there, which is 20 frames, and all these I'm going to bring to here, and then okay, and then let's go again 20 frames after for this one. And what was that? That was 1:14. So to here. And let's bring our end to here. Let's just see how this looks a bit quicker. It's going a bit too slow in these middle ones, so I'm just going to have a quick play. Make that a bit quicker. Okay, so that's not too bad. So what we have is it starting really slow, getting to its maximum speed halfway between the first two, then slowing down again. And then once it's at this point, again, it animates out really slowly, and then comes into this keyframe really quickly. And I've just left the last two as they are. And because I always did them in pairs, the very first and the very first, I don't have to go through and do those all again with the second half. So it should be reasonably even. So I think that is fine for this tutorial. Let's move on to, let's just stagger the animations of each letter. In the example, you'll see that each letter sort of goes one at a time in a sort of a wave. And that's just as simple as highlighting all the keyframes except the first one and moving them along one. And then going across one keyframe again. Don't forget this second letter has two sets of keyframes which need to stay together. So we'll move everything but those two. And then the next set beneath, highlight all, move along one keyframe. And then the next one keyframe. And then we come to our O. So these two rows of keyframes here will stay together. And it's just our N finally at the end. So move that to there. Let's just see how that looks. Yeah, that's looking quite good. So let's move on to the different layers, the different colours. So here we have 3 different colours behind our original black layer. And this is done quite simply with an echo effect. So I'm just going to select our layer. I'm going to duplicate. And this top one, let's leave this as, let's just call this black or main or black main. And then on the layer beneath, we're going to go to our effects and presets and we're going to search for echo. And let's drag echo onto our second layer. And then let's add a fill on top just so it changes the color. So search for fill, double click this. Let's leave that as red for now. So you'll see that it echoes behind here. We want this to be slightly longer or delayed for slightly longer. So on the minus 0.033, let's just change this to 0.06. Don't put anything too big here as the difference is quite significant. So 0.06 is quite good for this one. And there we go. I'm just going to change the color of this to a green. That's fine for now. Let's just play this through. There you go. You will see that it is only delaying after, not before. In the example, you'll see that the colors go first, followed by our main layer, and then echoed again after. So to do this, we don't have to add another layer. All we need to do is go to our second layer, click on our echo, and duplicate. And rather than minus or negative, we just need to delete this so it's a positive number or a plus number. Hit enter. Now you will see that that green layer is echoed before, and it's also echoed after. So if I just play this through, there we go. And it's as simple as that. And now all we need to do is on our second layer, the echo layer, let's call this green. Just need to duplicate that layer, drag it to the bottom. Let's call this one, let's do a blue one, call that blue. We just need to firstly change our color. We won't see it now because the echo number is the same, but let's just leave that as that. Let's just double this number. So rather than minus 0.06, we'll do minus 0.12. So double. Not forgetting to do our echo 2 as well. So 0.012. Enter. Let's play this. And there we go. So let's add a third. Duplicate our blue. Put that to the bottom. And let's do a final yellow layer. This time I'm going to change our echoes first. And again, let's add another 0.06. So this will be 0.18. Enter. And on our echo 2, 0.18. Then let's change the color to a yellow. There we go. That's fine. Play this through. And there we go. It's as simple as that. That's how we can create a very easy stretch and snap style text animation. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.